gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, William Jefferson Clinton.
George W. Bush.
Barack H. Obama.
Donald J. Trump.
Joseph R. Biden Jr.
Hey there, history buffs. Welcome back to my channel, Historical USA, where we discover the people, places, and events that made America. Well, today for Fun Fact Friday, I thought since we have a pretty historic day coming up, the presidential inauguration, that we would dive into the wild, wacky world of presidential inaugurations. We have definitely had a few doozies.
Really stole the show.
It's a simple image of Sanders sitting alone wearing his jacket and oversized mittens yesterday has now been photoshopped into hundreds of other pictures, including these.
From snowstorms to, yes, drunken oaths, and everything in between, these ceremonies have really seen it all.
And a weird thing happened at the inaugural parade of Richard Nixon in 1973. Concerned about bird droppings falling along the parade route, organizers used a chemical that was supposed to prevent that from happening. Unfortunately, the chemical was a little too strong, and dead pigeons fell from the sky.
So grab your popcorn and let's get this party started. Now, it all began with the GOAT himself, President George Washington. Washington took the first oath of office in New York, actually, in 1789. And as the first president, he really set the precedents for presidential inaugurations. Thousands clamored to hear President George Washington speak at his inauguration. And ever since then, the inauguration has really become a spectacle of tradition, drama, and sometimes absolute chaos.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Now let's talk about the inaugural address. If you ever Google trivia facts about presidential inaugurations, one of the first things that will pop up is George Washington's second inaugural address. Now, he sets the record, even today, for the shortest inaugural speech of any president. I mean, it really was only 135 words. I mean, that's shorter than my grocery list. Meanwhile, on the other hand, William Henry Harrison holds the record for the longest inaugural speech at 8,495 words. This 2-hour-long speech could not have been given on the worst day of the year. When Harrison was inaugurated, it was a blistery 31 degrees outside. It was storming, and there was no sun in sight. The wind chill on his inaugural day was freezing. And while his inauguration would not be the coldest inauguration on record, Harrison came under a lot of criticism for his age. See, many believed that Harrison was really too old and kind of feeble to be president. To kind of show his critics wrong, Harrison decided that he was going to give his speech on this cold, windy, sunless day without a coat, a hat, or gloves, in an attempt to show his fortitude and endurance to the American people. Now, spoiler alert, William Henry Harrison didn't last long after that. I mean, his reign as president lasted a whopping 31 days. And historians for decades have debated whether it was the cold that contributed to President Harrison's untimely death. However, my money is on the sewage-contaminated water that he drank at the White House. Hello, history friends. I am so excited to announce that we have partnered with Classical Learner. I am a historian, but more importantly, I am a homeschooling mother. Now, I get questions all the time from other homeschool parents and other parents concerned they might not be teaching their children enough social studies or civics or history. Classical Learner is a great way to help your child in all of those areas. Their children's book series, Cubs to Bears, will help your children understand things like what is the First Amendment? What is the Second Amendment? What is the Federal Reserve? They will teach your children things like critical thinking and health and nutrition. One thing that I'm really excited is they are also now rolling out historical works. Their first is George Washington by Ferdinand Schmidt that was originally published in 1911. Now, this book tells the story of George Washington from his upbringing to his ambitions to his ascension as the father of a new nation. It provides a really unique insight into the grievances of the American colonists and the issues they had with England and the culture that made 1776 possible. This is part of Classical Learner's mission to take lost, unpolitically correct history and make it available to the public. And you can get 10% off of any of these products when you use the coupon code Historical USA. You can visit the link down below in the description bar if you are interested in taking a look at some of their children's books and some of these great historical works. Now back to the video.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Now, the presidential oath is a defining moment of the inaugural ceremony. It is concise yet a powerful declaration that every United States president must recite before assuming the role. Now, the oath is specified in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution, and it is as followed.
Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect,
and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
Now, traditionally, the president-elect places his left hand on a Bible while raising his right hand to recite the 35-word oath. However, there has been a president or two that have flubbed the short oath of office. In my lifetime, who could forget the infamous oath flub of 2009? Now, Barack Obama, he is known for his eloquent speaking, but it wasn't his fault. See, Chief Justice John Roberts mixed up the words, and for a moment, we all thought that President Barack Obama might not actually be president.
Are you prepared to take the oath, Senator?
I am.
But Chief Justice John Roberts wasn't all that prepared to administer it on Tuesday.
That I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
That I will execute
the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States faithfully.
Later, Roberts told the president, "My bad." And last night, he went to the White House to make it right. And with no news cameras allowed in,
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And Roberts isn't the only Chief Justice to flub the oath. William Taft also mixed up the words when administering the oath to President Herbert Hoover.
Will preserve, maintain, and defend.
It's preserve, protect, and defend.
Now, before Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration in early 1865, his incoming vice president, the ever-popular Andrew Johnson, drank a few medicinal whiskeys to clamor his nerves and ease what he called symptoms of a recent bout of typhoid fever. However, by the time he rose to take the oath of office, he was visibly drunk, slurring his words and rambling incoherently for some 20 minutes. Even President Lincoln waited patiently with his eyes shut until the embarrassing spectacle ended. He later said Johnson had made a bad slip, but was not a drunkard. Barely 1 month later, however, Johnson would be sworn in again, this time as president, after the unfortunate assassin's bullet had killed President Lincoln at Ford's Theater. Now, the oaths are one thing, but the presidential inaugural parades are an absolute hallmark of American history and tradition, showcasing the nation's pride through pageantry and patriotism. It traditionally dates back to 1789 with George Washington's inauguration. Though impromptu and spontaneous, his supporters followed him all the way from Mount Vernon to New York City with cheers and applause. It wasn't until 1809, during President James Madison's inauguration, that the parade became an official part of the event. Now, First Lady Dolly Madison organized a lavish parade, setting the precedence for an inaugural parade, each inauguration.
The President of the United States, Barack Obama, and the First Lady, Michelle Obama.
The parade typically features a diverse array of participants, including military units, marching bands, cultural organizations, and community groups. See, it represents the varied and vibrant landscape of the United States. As America has changed, so has the inaugural parade. And we've had some really interesting moments at the parade, from Eisenhower being lassoed to Jimmy Carter and his peanut balloon.
During the ball, the President with the First Lady and the Vice President and Mrs. Johnson introduces the members of the new cabinet.
And what's an inauguration without its ball? See, the presidential inauguration is a celebration like no other, with glamour, history, and of course, fashion. The very first inaugural ball was held on May 7th, 1789, in honor of George Washington. However, it wasn't an official event organized by the government. No, it wouldn't be until James Madison that the inaugural ball would become a staple of the inaugural events. And we can thank his lovely wife, the First Lady Dolly Madison, for that. But not all balls over the years have been at the White House. See, some inaugurational balls can be hosted at a variety of venues, from the White House to grand hotels, even temporary pavilions set up around the city. The culinary scene at the inaugural ball has always been lavish. For example, at the 1953 ball for Dwight D. Eisenhower, the menu included 13,000 glasses of champagne, 7,500 lobster patties, and 6,000 servings of caviar. Wow. And of course, the inaugural balls are a huge stage for high fashion. See, First Ladies have often used the occasion to debut show-stopping gowns. From Jacqueline Kennedy's white gown by designer Oleg Cassini to Melania Trump's off-the-shoulder dress designed by Hervé Pierre. And who can forget the entertainment? I mean, a who's who of American entertainers have been asked to perform at the inauguration. From Michael Jackson to Fleetwood Mac to Beyonce, there is no shortage of great musicians clamoring to be a part of this inaugural event. And who could forget the tradition of dancing with the president? See, the tradition usually sees the president and first lady sharing their first dance. This tradition has resulted in some truly tender and memorable moments. Presidential inaugural balls, just like the parades, are more than just a party. They're a mix of tradition, celebration, and a reflection of the times. But they were not always a star-studded event. In fact, Andrew Jackson's open house invitation led to complete and utter chaos at the White House, with guests ruining the furniture, drinking too much, fighting too much, and thanks to a gift of a 1,400-pound block of cheese, the crowd literally had a cheese-feeding frenzy, leaving the carpets and furniture smelling like cheese for months.
And now, from the East Building of the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., here is Dan Rather.
Good morning. It is frostbite red, snow white, and ice cold blue here in flash frozen Washington. Record bitter cold. At last report, 2 degrees. It got down as low as 4 degrees overnight. 2 degrees at our last report. Minus 10 degrees at this hour when you figure in the considerable wind chill factor. So cold that for the first time in 152 years, the inaugural parade has been canceled entirely.
And just like the people, the weather has always played a role in inaugurations. William H. Taft had to deal with a blizzard. Well, Ronald Reagan's first inauguration was one of the warmest on record at 55 degrees. His second inauguration faced record low temperatures at a whopping 7 degrees, forcing his inauguration for the first time ever indoors. And let's not forget Ulysses S. Grant, whose inauguration day was at 16 degrees. It was so cold that the champagne froze solid. So did hundreds little yellow canaries brought in for the celebration. Poor guys. And like I said earlier, traditionally presidents swear in on the Bible, but not every president has used a Bible. Teddy Roosevelt wasn't sworn in on a Bible. I mean, he assumed the role of president following the assassination of President William McKinley. And he was sworn in the middle of the night at the private home of Ainsley Wilcox, who later wrote that, according to my best recollection, no Bible was used. But President Roosevelt was sworn in with just an uplifted hand. And John Quincy Adams didn't take his oath on a Bible at all. Adams instead used a law book that contained the United States Constitution.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President
And of course, let's not forget the drama. I mean, the presidential inaugurations have no shortage of drama and controversy. I mean, President Donald Trump was far from the first president to boycott his successor, Joe Biden's inauguration. Presidential bad blood goes back a rather long way. In 1801, second U.S. President John Adams snubbed Thomas Jefferson, leaving the White House at dawn, refusing to even greet his former vice president. And his son, John Quincy Adams, who won a pretty contentious election in 1824 against Andrew Jackson, who Jackson also claimed that the vote was stolen for 4 years, would later win the White House, turning the tables after an even more contentious campaign. Like his father, Adams Jr. was a bad loser, and for good reason. I mean, if you look at the history of that campaign, oh my gosh. But he left the White House the night before the inauguration, refusing to meet with Andrew Jackson. And in 1841, Democrat Martin Van Buren was a no-show at the inauguration of William H. Harrison. Although considering that that speech was 2 hours long in the middle of a storm, I would have skipped it too. Of course, Andrew Johnson also boycotted his successor's inauguration in 1869, refusing to go to Ulysses S. Grant's inauguration.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
And while the inaugurations are a time of celebration and for the country to get together to witness the peaceful transfer of power, not every inauguration has been a happy one. In fact, Franklin Pierce wouldn't swear to faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States. When he was inaugurated on March 4th, 1853, Pierce became the only president to affirm the office of president rather than swear it. He did so as he was in the midst of a crisis of faith and a complete and depressive-induced breakdown, obviously reeling from the traumatic death of his only son, Benjamin, who had died in a train accident only 2 months earlier. I mean, his wife even refused to leave her room the majority of the time that he was president. It was bad. When President Warren G. Harding died in office, Calvin Coolidge was at his family's Vermont farm, which had no electricity or a telephone. He received word of Harding's death by courier. During the early morning hours on August 3rd, 1923, Coolidge was sworn in by his father, who was a notary public. The entire ceremony was conducted by kerosene lamp, and the new president reportedly went back to bed afterwards. And of course, following the assassination of President Kennedy, Lyndon Baines Johnson took the oath of office on November 2nd, 1963, aboard Air Force One. Judge Sarah Hughes administered the oath, and she became the first and only woman to inaugurate a president thus far. So there you have it. Inaugurations are a mix of tradition, drama, and a sprinkle of chaos. Which inauguration moment surprised you the most? And which ones did I miss? Let me know your favorite fun fact about presidential inaugurations down below in the comment. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more historical videos like this. Until next time, bye.